Well, hello there. This is Katie from the Health, Wellness, and Chocolate podcast. And I wanted to talk to you today about an idea. It's called mental contrasting. And that's like the positive psychology term for what I want to talk about today. But it's basically about, okay, why am I not hitting my goals? Like I start out, tell me if this sounds like you. I start out like with a goal in mind and I have like 100% motivation. Like I am so hitting this goal, right? And maybe you like totally kill it for weeks or months even, okay? Maybe it's a huge goal and you're doing really great. But then life happens and it kind of goes sideways, and then maybe like a couple days you're like, you know what, I just need to focus on something else right now and I'll get back to my goal. And then before you know it, the goal is gone. It's but a distant memory, and here you are like back at the beginning again, and maybe mad at yourself or beating yourself up, like what happened, like, you know, and you find yourself kind of stunned, like what in the world, I was doing so good, how come I didn't hit that goal that I wanted to hit? Like what did I do wrong, right? So, you know, what we tend to do is when we are setting a goal, we tend to think of like all the positive benefit of what that goal of what hitting that goal means, which is awesome. Like you really should do that. But here's the thing, just merely dreaming about the future inside your brain, you like it, if you never consider the cost of what it would take for you to hit your goal, chances are you're going to be less likely to hit your goal. So if we talk about, okay, what's the future version of yourself? Like how is that future version of you going to look like? What are you going to look like? How are you going to feel? How are you going to act, right? And then start acting like that now, because you'll never become who you want to be if you don't act like who you want to be now, okay? You don't just magically appear to be the person that you want to be. Well, what your brain does is, there's like a negative effect to only focusing on the end result of your goal and the positive things that happen. Your brain actually kind of thinks about it like it already happened. And so it definitely decreases that sense of urgency, like, oh yeah, I got this, you know, and it actually does like tend to lower your blood pressure. You start to relax a little bit, and our brains actually trick us into thinking we are already there. So it's called mental attainment, right? So when we visualize that without actually considering the flip side of the coin of like the work that'll go into it, we actually set ourselves up for failure. So what I want to talk to you today is really like the other side of the coin. And I think you'll find this helpful, especially if you start goals and you start making progress, but then life gets in the way and the goal kind of goes out the window. And you might think like, oh, you know, I have no willpower, right? That's kind of like the default that we usually use is like, well, I have no willpower and that's why I never hit the goals I set out. And actually, that's probably not true. This actually might be what you're missing. It's called, like I said, mental contrasting, and they use it in positive psychology circles. So because, because you're not hitting your goals, a lot of times it's because you're busy being reactive to what's happening outside of you, right? Typically our circumstances change and the goals kind of go out the window. So what this tool will help you do is to be proactive, and it will help you think of, like I said, that other side of the coin that could be the negative side. Now, if you think of a spectrum, right? And like you have this positive, like, yes, I'm going to hit that goal, and you never consider the negative, chances are you're not going to hit your goals, right? But there's also this flip side of the coin where it's on the other end of the spectrum completely. And it's this idea of like, all the things that could possibly go wrong, all the hurdles that you're going to have to overcome, all the time and energy and emotional trial and the cost, right? Like counting the cost in a negative way is on the other side of that spectrum. And chances are, if you only look at that, you'll never move forward on hitting your goals. So what we want to do is try to find a spot in the middle where you consider the positive motivation for wanting to hit your goal, but then you also consider the reality of what it's actually going to take. So say you're very busy, right? But you set this goal. Actually, one of the things I like to think of is this. Say you love to run, right? Like you want to be a runner. Maybe you're not even a runner, right? And you want to be a runner. But so you say, okay, I'm going to start running. I'm going to have to get up at 6 a.m. And run every day for at least 30 minutes. And that's going to be my new goal. I want to become a runner and run on a 5K. And that's what I have to do. So that's what I'm going to do. So now you start out and you do really well. But let's say you live in Alaska and half of the year it is pitch black outside at 6 a.m. And not only is it pitch black, but the roads are covered with snow and it is freezing cold. And the last thing you want to do is get up in negative 27 degree weather and go for a jog at 6 a.m., right? So what happened? The goal goes out the window because life got in the way, or you got too busy, or something came up, and like running at 6 a.m. on a cold winter day in snow-covered roads, like suddenly lost its appeal, right? And that goal kind of goes out the window. Well, what happened was you didn't consider the full cost of taking up this goal, right? So what could have you done instead? So, all right, my goal is I want to jog every morning at 6 a.m. and I live in Alaska. Now I'm just giving you this example because it's pretty extreme, but I want to help you move along, right? So what's going to happen when it is 6 a.m. and it's negative 27 degrees outside and the roads are covered with snow? What is my game plan for that? Because I know it's going to happen. I know that's going to be a hurdle, and I know that, right? So this is mental contrasting. So what you could do then is come up with 5 other things that you can do on the days where you can't get outside to jog. You can get a treadmill. You can go join a gym for the winter months, right? But like you come up with solutions. So rather than having a circumstance change on you, like winter in Alaska, and being like, well, I can't jog now, and like that whole goal goes out the window, you have in your arsenal, in your toolbox, now this idea of like, okay, I know I can't jog right now. It's cold and it's freezing, and I've never been to Alaska, so, maybe it's not, but I'm kind of thinking it is. So like you kind of, you have this idea, and then you can say, okay, well, I know it's going to be freezing cold and I know it's going to be miserable out. So this is what I'm going to do instead. And you have a game plan for when life goes sideways, because life goes sideways and it goes sideways for everybody. And so when it does, we should not be surprised. It'll be like, oh, yep, here it is. Like for me, trying to eat healthy and having like healthy homemade meals, and someone, like we have 8 kids, someone's going to throw up eventually. Like it's kind of like a given. And so rather than being like, well, we can't eat healthy tonight because so-and-so is sick, let's just get takeout. Like that's not an option, right? Like I know someone's going to get sick. We live in the real world. So I'll have soup frozen. So it's like, so when I sit down and say, okay, my goal is to make sure we have homemade healthy meals on the regular. So what does that look like? Well, that means I know some nights the kids have activities to go to and we're in a rush and we can't get there. Some nights my husband works super late, or there's traffic because he commutes through 2 states to get to work and home. So inevitably he's not around either for dinner or to like help with the kids or hang with them so I can get dinner on the table. Like that's a given. Especially in the summer, sometimes we just want to hang out by the pool longer because we join a campground and they have a pool that we're able to use. And so we like to do that in the summer, right? So knowing that situations come up, or someone gets sick, or someone, we've had it where we were playing at the pool and someone slipped and fell and now we have to go to the emergency room because now they need stitches, right? Like things come up, life happens. So what's my game plan? So if my goal is to eat healthy most of the time, then I have things in my pantry, things in my freezer, so that when life goes sideways, because it will, I have things in there, like I have soup or chili or something really yummy that everybody can eat that we can have really super fast. And that's my go-to, right? I had shrimp frozen, and I was able to have the shrimp and saute it with I think it's called Tony's. It's like a Cajun seasoning. And I was able to do that in a pan. And it literally took under 5 minutes to cook the shrimp and then some quinoa and some corn. And that was dinner. And there was grains and there was shrimp. And then we had some veggies on the side. And it was fast and it was healthy and nourishing. But it didn't take long, right? Like it doesn't have to take a huge long time. But it was something like, I know life is going to happen. I know life is going to go sideways, but we still want to have our goal of eating well. So what am I going to have to do when life goes sideways, right? That's kind of what I want you to start thinking about. Like I have a goal and I'm excited to hit it and I know I'm going to, But when life goes sideways and I can't, and it's going to get harder to keep doing what I want to do, what am I going to do when those hurdles appear? What are the hurdles and how can I overcome them? Okay, so when you start any goal, your motivation is super high. And a lot of times we don't really consider like, oh no, I am going to lose weight. Nothing's going to stop me, right? And we start out really good, maybe even for months. But then if we've never learned how to manage our emotions and we're just following a diet, we may have some success initially, but life gets in the way and life goes sideways because it does for everybody. And then the diet kind of goes out the window and we're like, well, we're not on it anymore. So let's just eat while I'm still off of it and I'll get back to it. And then before you know it, you've gained back what you lost and then some, because that's the way diets work. And, you're like, oh my gosh, I have no willpower. What happened, right? It's not you. It's just life is going to go sideways and we don't prepare for that. So what I want you to do is start being proactive, not just reactive, right? So we're not going to react to our life circumstances like, oh my goodness, everything went wrong today. Let's just eat Burger King or something. Like you want to be able to kind of plan like life went sideways and let's have a nice nourishing dinner and then go out and play and go for a walk and de-stress that way, right? Like have a plan in place basically. So if this pattern is familiar to you, start doing mental contrasting. All right. And I have my notes. So give me 1 second while I check them out because I want to make sure I hit all the points that I have for you. But so when you think about a goal and you want to set your goal and you start to think positively about it. And like I said, so you imagine yourself, your future version of yourself. You imagine what life will be like. You imagine what you do. That's not negative. It's actually a good thing to do that because it helps us prioritize. It does help you relax, and it can make you feel good, right? Which is an awesome motivator, right? That like initial, it can kind of give you that motivation to start and give you that shot in the arm, basically, to like get going and start hitting those goals that you want to hit. But what you want to do then is start taking that positive fantasy that you have in your mind, and now you want to start pairing that with reality. So the way you would do that is like, okay, where do I want to be? What does that future version of myself look like, right? Or whatever your goal is, like whatever the end goal and the end result is that you want. Now, imagine that, right? And now take a step back and say, okay, where am I really? So if I want to say like, maybe my goal is, and actually, I'll share this with you. I want to get my doctorate, okay? I want to go get it in behavioral psychology, and I want to help more people who are adult children of alcoholics lose weight, because I noticed that there's a pattern, and I think a lot of people who are adult children of alcoholics struggle with codependency, and they struggle with their weight as a result. And I have done a lot of research, and actually, I think I could really help a lot of people in this area. So one of my goals is to get my doctorate. And I feel like, okay, I can help a lot more people. Well, now that's the fantasy, right? Like that's the end goal. So now what's the reality? Well, the reality is I have 8 kids. One is only 2 years old. So if I'm going to be doing that, that's going to be a lot of cost, right? That I'm like, I don't want to miss their childhood. They're only this little for so long. I think I can still help people without a doctorate. And eventually I will go get it. But like right now, I just don't feel like it's the right time. But I would have just blindly bumbled through it and maybe felt like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. What did I do? If I hadn't considered the flip side of that coin and be like, I don't know if right now is the right time. I've got 2 girls going off to college. I've got a 2-year-old. I've got, all the kids in between that need my attention. And I feel like I don't know if I want to divide up my emotional energy and physical energy pie into more squares. So that is something like I have to consider that as well before I start moving forward. So what I want you to do is think of this. What is your most important goal or want or desire or need that you have for the next week within your own health and wellness? This is health, wellness, and chocolate. Let's talk health and wellness, right? So what is the most important thing to you moving forward with your health and wellness? And what would it be like if you actually hit that goal and everything worked out, right? Like you're a year out and you set a goal for yourself and you hit it, right? Like what is life like for you now? Like what are you doing? Who are you spending time with? What is the best thing that happened to you? And then like then I want you to identify, like, what are the obstacles that are going to come up for you that would hold you back. Okay. So, not only would you be thinking of how to hit your goal and what your life would be like, but like what actually came up for you that you had to overcome. So was it a lack of funding? Was money really tight? Was time really tight? So let's say your goal is to exercise, start a walking routine or start an exercise routine. Like, so what are the hurdles going to be? Is it going to be a hurdle to get to the gym for you if you have a very demanding work schedule? Is that going to be a problem for you? Like, think about that now before you're like, that'll just work out, right? Because I think we've talked about this before. You put a lot of pressure on your future self to work out problems. And also you think of your future self as being more disciplined than your present self. And you have to think about the way your present self is. Like, are you disciplined enough to get up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym so you have time to do that before you go to work? If you're currently not able to do that, but you think, next week I will, it's probably not going to happen. So kind of consider your personality too. It'd be like, I don't know if I'm not a morning person. And I know I'm going to get this gym membership and never use it. And then I'll feel like a failure, right? Where it's like, well, that's your personality. So think of the obstacles that are going to come up. It could be your own personality. It could be your own likes and dislikes. It could be finances. It could be, hold on one second, please. Okay. It could be, any kind of obstacle that could be holding your back, that could be holding you back, right? And then imagine you confront this obstacle. So what would that look like? If you're not a morning person, but you sign up and you have to get to the gym early in the morning, like, how are you going to overcome that? What are you going to do to make sure that you hit that goal? That's important to consider, and actually have a strategy. It could be like, I'm going to go to bed earlier, or I'm going to make sure that all my gym bags packed, and my meals are prepped, everything is ready to go out the door every morning, so that it's not a hurdle to get out the door that early, right? Like, really think of what's going to come up for you, and then how are you going to overcome it so that you can be the most successful. All right. And then what you could do too is like really find the most important obstacle and really tackle that one first. And then do what it's called if-then planning, right? So if this comes up, then I will do that. So let's say, if I have a hard time getting up and I miss the gym, then I'm going to work out in the morning before I leave for work, because you'll still have that extra time, right? Like, come up with if-then planning. So that way, if you sleep in and you don't have time to go to the gym, you're not just like, oh, well, you'd be like, oh, I know me. I planned this. I'm going to just do a DVD workout at home today. But at least you're still exercising. Do you see what I mean? So you want to start doing this if-then planning, and don't think you won't need this, because like I said, life happens, and then, life gets in the way basically of our goals. And then it's not like we can't just like be like, oh, well, we'll just try again tomorrow. Because if you do that over and over again, tomorrow never comes and you've not hit any of the goals you set out for. So rather be realistic when you set your goals. Like, okay, I know me and I know I'm not a morning person. So how am I going to overcome this? Like, what else can I do? Is there a better time that I could be exercising instead of early morning? Think realistically. Don't imagine, this goal being achievable if it doesn't fit within like the way you actually live, because you may have some success, but you're always going to fall back on that default until you've actually really made it part of who you are. And that might take a lot longer than only a few weeks. Okay, so that is what's called mental contrasting. And they found that if you create a plan or a goal, and then you do this mental contrasting where you could kind of come up with situations or scenarios that are hurdles for you, and then come up with ways that you can get over those hurdles and strategies to get around them, or to like, oh, someone's got a stomach virus. Well, there's a shock. Okay, that's okay. We can still have a really nourishing meal tonight because I have frozen soup or whatever, right? And then it's not like, oh, like we just have to have fries. It's like, no, you don't have to, because you've planned it. Life is going to happen. So I want you to start thinking about that going forward this week, right? Like pair a positive change pair it with success, consider how you're going to feel, but then also be realistic about it and actually take your personality, your time constraints, your budget restraints, your family obligations, like all those things take into consideration. Because I could say and actually this came up. Let me just share this with you before I go. I want to join, there's a CrossFit gym not that far from my house. It's probably like 15 minutes away. So it's not far. And I would love to join it. And actually it's like on my wish list, right? But they open, they don't open up very early. I think the earliest they open maybe 6. And for me, I was like, if I could go at like 5, I could get in, get out. The kids would still be sleeping. I have adult children here. So they can be kind of keep, hold the fort down. But I can run out and come back and no one would even miss me. That's awesome. But they don't open up early enough. And then I'm like, when it's 5 a.m., I don't spring out of bed now and work out right away. I ease into my day. I have my tea. I do my reading. The last thing I actually want to do right as soon as I wake up is exercise. So I don't really know if that's going to work out for me. And I know, 4:00 in the afternoon is an amazing time for us to go outside and walk and stuff like that. And it's I could go do CrossFit then, but honestly, my kids need me then. And that's not going to work. So it's you know what? For now, CrossFit isn't going to work. I could join and spend the money and then feel like a complete failure because I never stuck to it. Or I could say, there's a lot of other things going on in my life right now. And I'm doing pretty good with having an exercise routine that works for me here in my house, that for the next few years, I'm probably going to have to stick with. And then in a few years, my family situation will be different. And maybe then I could tweak it and figure out what else to do. Okay. But think of the things, don't attach so much burden on your future self of thinking things are going to be different for you, because you still are who you are. You still have the limitations you have. You still have the personality you have. You still have the budget you have, right? You still have to kind of ground your goals and desires within the bounds of reality that you have for yourself too, so that you don't get frustrated. And by doing that, studies have shown that you actually are able to move forward and hit the goals that you want to hit. So I hope you take this. I hope you run with it. I hope you start applying it. And hopefully just this little shift of actually identifying the obstacles that come up for you, hopefully that helps you cross the finish line with some goals. So if you found this helpful, I would love to have you inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint. I have it only for $1 that you can try it for the trial version. You get the user manual, and you also get my ebook, How to Eat Like Your Skinny Friends, along with the 9 foundational health and wellness blueprint classes. So that'll get you started on your health and wellness journey. And then if you like it and you want to stay, feel free to stay. I offer amazing discounts only for the people who go ahead and do the trial. So I would love for you to give it a shot. See if you like it. We meet weekly. We chat live. So you have access to me. And then I also offer some bonuses too for the people that like to join and do the Health and Wellness Blueprint with me. Okay. So I hope to see you in there. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.